Hi everyone. So today you're working on your home lesson number 15 and you're going to be looking at distance time graphs. So we've done some graphing already. We have looked at similar graphs to these. We're just going to take it a little bit further today. So let's look at these two graphs at the bottom here, A and B, and let's see which of these graphs matches this story. So I want you to think about it while you're listening to me read it. George lives 400 meters from a video store. He walks to the store, but along the way he stops for 2 minutes to watch a baseball game in the neighborhood park. He continues to walk to the video store, chooses and rents a movie, and then he runs straight home to watch it. So which of these two graphs do you think would match that story? So think about what's happening in the story. So he's 400 meters away from the video store. So there's 400 meters here. The graph has time along the bottom on the x-axis, and the y-axis has distance. So 400 meters, so both of them go up to 400 meters. He stops for 2 minutes. So which of these two graphs demonstrates him stopping for 2 minutes? So if you look at the first graph, he's traveling 300 meters over 2 minutes. The second section of the graph is horizontal. The distance is not changing at all, but time is changing, which means he must be standing still. And he's doing that for 1 minute. Our graph said 2 minutes, which is what this graph is showing. Our story said 2 minutes. So this one matches the second part of the story. He continues to walk to the video store, chooses and rents a movie. So he continues walking. This section here means he's renting the movie, and then he runs straight back home to watch it. So it's going to be graph A, or sorry, graph B for that one. So we'll just circle it. All right, so now let's use these words in these boxes to describe each of the 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the way, your homework today is not going to be practice questions like you normally get. Your homework for today is going to be to create a story like this. Okay, to create a graph, write a story, and then your story has to match each of the sections in the graph. And then you're going to calculate the speed of each of these sections, which I will show you how to do in a second. So let's use some of these words that you can also use in your story when you're creating your own. So section A, the words that I would choose would be constant speed or constant rate, right? Because it's a nice smooth line. Moving towards, he's moving towards the store. And then also it's increasing. For section B, that's the horizontal line here. We can use the word stopped or stationary. Section C is very similar to section A, right? So we're going to use the same words for section C. And then section D means after the 400 meter, or after 4 minutes and 400 meters, George turns around and goes back home. So he's going in the opposite direction. It's constant speed, so moving away from the store, going back, it's decreasing, and then also constant rate. So think about these words when you're writing your own story. So now let's calculate the speed of each of those sections. So speed is represented by the variable v. And we're going to use the symbol delta, which we've used before for first differences, and it means change in a variable, right? What is the change? What is the difference? How are things changing? So we're looking at the speed, and the way we calculate speed is looking at distance over time. So how far did you travel over a certain period of time? So if you're driving on the highway, right, you would be driving 100 kilometers, that's the distance part, over 1 hour, and that's the time part. Okay, so for this question here, it's asking to determine the speed of section A, so this section here. So George traveled what distance? Well, that distance is on the y-axis. He traveled 300 meters. Okay, and over what time period? Well, he did that over 2 minutes. So it's 300 over 2. You want to divide those two numbers, and you'll get 150 meters per minute. So that is his speed. Let's take a look at the speed of the other three sections. So section B, similar kind of idea. So distance, the change in distance, that's the vertical change, there isn't any. So that's going to be 0. And over what time period? Over 1 minute. So 0 over 1, which is 0 meters per minute. That's when he was standing still. Section C went from 300 meters to 400 meters. So the change in that is 100 meters. And over what time period? Well, over 1 minute, going from the 3rd minute to the 4th minute. So over 1 minute. So that's 100 meters per minute. And the last section, he's returning back home. So the distance there is going to be, right? How do you get from that point to that point? Well, you have to drop down 400 meters. And the time across here would be 4 to 9, which is 5 minutes, 5 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. Okay, so 400 meters over 5 squares. And I know it's going in the negative slope direction, but because we're talking about speed, where it doesn't matter if you're going somewhere or coming back home, when we talk about speed, it's always a positive value. Okay, so we're going to say 80 meters per minute, even though we're going in the opposite direction. And the last question, this is a quick lesson today. Determine the average speed between 0 and 4 minutes. So between 0 and 4, how fast was he traveling on average? So how do you get from the first point to the last point? It's going to be your rise over your run, right? Or the difference in the distance over the distance in the time. So he traveled 400 meters over 4 minutes, which is an average of 100 meters per minute. If I asked you what was the average speed over the entire trip, right? That would be 400 meters going to the store and 400 meters going back. So in total, he traveled 800 meters over 9 minutes. Okay, so that would be a little bit different. All right, so for your homework, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to create your own graph with 8 sections. I'd like you to write a story, so like a paragraph that matches that graph. Your story should have 8 parts because your graph is going to have 8 sections. And then I'd like you to find the speed of each of the 8 sections. Include an image that would be appropriate for your story. This is kind of like a little fun thing. For example, if you were writing a story about a squirrel looking for his food that he hid earlier in the fall, you could include a photo of a squirrel, and I'd like you to have fun with it. You're going to do all of this on a Google Doc, and you're going to submit that in Google Classroom. All right, good luck, and let me know if you need some help. I will be on Google Meet today twice at 9:30 and then at 11:30. Good luck.